Shalom and welcome back. Now we're going to be doing lesson number 19. So let's begin. Va'amarta, and you said, Daber Moshe. Moshe spoke. Ki, because Shomea Avdecha, your servant is hearing. Alright. So let's go and break down the grammar of this, okay? So here we have a vav reversive. Why? Because here we have the word amarta, and amarta, this here, we should know, is the pronoun. And that's the pronoun's always used at the end. We know that this is the past tense verb, okay? And here we have left the root, aleph, mem, resh, which is the word for amar, which is said. So here this has to be the vav reversive. So the vav reversive, remember, is always going to be the vav that's going to cause the past to become future. Now, this could be, okay, a regular vav conjunction, because remember, vav conjunctions and vav reverses, they look the same. So the question is always going to be based upon the context. So let's look at this. If I said va'amarta, and you said daber Moshe, that Moshe spoke, ki shomea avdecha, for your servant is hearing. Obviously the context of it would sound more like we should put it in the future rather than putting it into the past. So va'amarta, and you will say, daber Moshe, speak Moshe, ki shomea avdecha, for your servant is listening. Okay? So this is what we're going to do. Is you see the reversive is going to change the past tense into a future. Alright? So we have to note that this is going to be read as a future. Okay? So here we're going to say, and you will say. Now, I want you to understand something here. Is remember that one thing you have to understand with regard to future and past is future and past can also be understood as a command. Okay? So if you're using the future or the past, you can look at it as a command and understand it as a command, because when we're looking at these words, you say, for example, va'amarta, the idea that we can say here is the concept of should, could, or shall. Okay? This is, we have to put this mood into this thing here. So we're looking at this as a, for example, as a command statement. We're going to see this as, it's not a command statement like you think, like where you're telling somebody to do something. It has the essence of it. So you have to understand that when somebody's talking to somebody, you can use the command form like daber, speak, alright? But here, this command statement is not the same tense, but it follows the same kind of like mentality. Because when we say va'amarta, here we can say, and you shall say, because he's telling the person what it is that the person should be saying, and of course he's saying this in the future tense. So here we also, remember this, we can put the word shall and get rid of will. Will always is used for future, but shall expresses the concept of a kind of a command attitude, but it doesn't have the same emphasis as a command, because it's more of a mood issue here versus a command when you're demanding that a person do something, period. Speak, eat, drink. Those are all commands. So you say achal, eat, or you say shata, drink. Okay, those are all commands, and so we want to understand the differentiation between a command versus the mood of command. So this is the mood of command we find with relationship to past and future. The bear, this is a command statement. So this one here is the imperative. And the imperative is the statement that we say when we're telling people to do something. Lech, go. Okay, bo, come. Those are all the commands that we're going to be seeing, where we're demanding that somebody perform the action. When you're requesting a kind of an idea that would be good, it would be noteworthy, this is when you're going to see it in the verb form, where it's not used as a command, but the verb acts almost like a command. Okay? So here the imperative, speak. And then of course next we're going to say Moshe. This is not how it's written in obviously the scripture. The passage is the word Lord. So I'm putting Moshe just to show you the fact that you can still use all of the grammatical things that you've already seen and place different words in there, and you start to begin to play with the fact of the idea of how Hebrew grammar works a little better. So he says, Va'amarta, and you shall say, Daber Moshe, speak Moshe. Ki, for. So ki, when we look at this, ki you're going to understand, and you're going to see in Hebrew has multiple different possible ways of being translated. Ki could be because, ki can be for, and we have to differentiate in our minds when the context is going to make sense and under what circumstance are we going to translate it in that statement here. The word shomea, this here is called a participle. So what is a participle? A participle is a present tense verb that can function also as a noun if necessary and if the context requires such a thing, or as if I need to create a noun based upon some identification that's associated to the action. For example, a shomer is a guard. But if I say shomer in a verbal sense, it means guarding. Okay? That's what a participle is. So we see the word shomea. Normally, when we see in our verbs for pa'al, we see only this. We see oe. Okay? For example, if you said the word boneh, build, okay? Or kotev, write, writing, okay? Or the word koreh, reading, okay? Here we see that it has the asa, and this is because we have here a guttural, alright? So the guttural takes an extra vowel, and that's why we're going to see the asa here in this one of the actual participle form. So that's why we see the word shome'ah. So whenever we have a guttural in this, we're going to always see a vowelization taking place here with regard to compensate for the issue of the guttural. Okay? So shome'ah means listening or hearing. It's going to depend on the context if we need listening or hearing. So here, obviously, if we look at this, Va'amarta, and you shall say, Diber Moshe, speak Moshe, ki, for, Shemea, listening, Avdecha, your servant is listening, or your servant is hearing. Obviously, hearing in this context wouldn't make sense. We would use listening in relationship to the context. So you could see when you would and when you wouldn't be utilizing it. It's all dependent upon the concept of what it is that we need to hear verbally in relationship to what we're understanding. Avdecha, your servant. So Avdecha is a breakup of two words, basically. We have the word Evid, which is the word servant, and then we have the pronoun you. So we have avdecha, servant, ha, you. So this is possessive, so it means your. So we have to understand that when using the possessive pronoun, you have to go back and look at the possessive pronoun chart, where you can look and see all the possessive pronouns that you add to the end of a noun, and you'll see the fact of what happened to. So what's happened here with this verb ev? Why isn't it evdecha? All right, evdecha. Okay. This is just something you have to understand with vocalization, that when you have an ayin, that the ayin becomes an a sound, like we see here, a. So avdecha, your servant, instead of evdecha. Okay. So avdecha, your servant. So we have to understand the fact of one of the major things here is, once again, go back here and look at the differentiation between Devar Moshe, which is a noun construct, where this is Diber Moshe, this is a command, not the same. Remember the fact that, your pronouns are always going to be at the end when they're past tense. Always the pronouns at the end. And the other key factor is, when we look at the nouns, this is going to be your hardest thing that you're going to have to just basically learn how to fight through, and that is learning to identify the pronouns that are possessive at the end of a noun. And you might have maybe a bet in the front, ba'avdecha, in your servant, okay, and you have to say, oh, okay, that's the preposition here, and then there's the actual noun, and then there's my pronoun possessive. And that's just something you're going to have to get used to with relationship to this. But just know that when you're taking the word eved, as we see here, there is a change that has to be done in order to compensate for the possessive pronoun, which is cha, your, okay? So avdecha, your servant, is what we have here. And this is important to just remember. There's some things that they're going to put in here. I want you to know, I don't waste my time learning the possil forms, and I won't teach you the possil forms other than the fact that they exist. All possil forms is incorrect spellings, okay? That's just all they are. So like, instead of it being lecha, it's lach. And why they exist, there's really no purpose for it. Honestly, you could completely rewrite all of the whole scriptures back into the original form it was in, leaving everything in the masculine form, because normally what you have here is, you have a lot of times you'll find like avdecha would be like written in the passive, in the feminine form, avdaich, and all of a sudden you have this weird thing going on that doesn't say anything other than that there's a pause. It's only for when they're doing specifically the singing of the Torah, which even that in itself, there is no specific way that you have to sing it. The Torah says that you just must sing it when you're reading it. The fact that there's, an Ashkenazi way, a Sephardic way, a Yemenite way, only means that there's just a traditional way that they have done it out of some point in time that they codified. That's all it means. It's nothing biblical about the fact that you have to sing it this way. You can sing the Torah any way as the Torah says. As long as it's being sung, that is proper for it to be read in public. But in relationship to the issue of the possil forms, you don't need to memorize them. It's not even important. All you need to know is when you run into them and you notice it doesn't make sense, why is this a feminine where the whole subject's about masculine? Just change it to the masculine form. It's not going to change anything. It's a possil form, and that's what a possil form is. And that's why I want you to understand that, because it doesn't really make any variance. I'm not even going to put all the little throps and stuff on here because it's a waste of time. You just want to know the Hebrew. You want to know the right vowel sounds. You want to know the right vowel points. You want to know how to pronounce it, if it's masculine or is it feminine. That's all we have to focus on, and that's all we really need to know in order to really be able to sit and read and understand what's being said. So we're done with this lesson. We'll see you next time as we go to lesson number 19, and we continue on with our lesson of learning Biblical Hebrew.